Hello, everybody, and welcome to our live event, question and answers for September. I'm Dave Solberg, managing editor. Of course, you know that. Had quite a week here. We just did a gold 30 minutes ago, and had one question come out of that, but we discussed the black water tank and gray water tank holding systems. Got a chance to go to the Hershey RV show, and man, 1,200 units and 64,000 people came through that. I was there for 2.5 days, catching up with some of the older RV people, manufacturers and OEMs, and saw some great product, and met some fun people, and I met a couple of people that are members of the club that showed up. So hopefully you guys are here tonight. It was great meeting you. Also, I had a chance to do the Raleigh RV show, and we had over 11,000 people through that, and we the seminars were packed. So people are out and about, and hopefully doing the social distancing. So with that, we're going to get started. We've got a few questions that have come up here. First of all, Brian says, I have a Dometic Sealand toilet in my 2013 Fleetwood Storm MS-28. The flush valve is not a guillotine style, but it is a ball style. The seal leaks, and there never is water in the bowl after a minute. What is the fix? So what he's got, a lot of the RVs will have there we go, this type of a spade valve in it. This happens to be the shutoff of the valve for the dump stations, but you'll have a similar kind of a valve in a toilet. His actually is a ball that rotates. So when you push that lever down, there's a ball that rotates around that seal, and there could be a couple different things. The first thing I would look for is I'd make sure I clean that seal really good, and make sure there's nothing, toilet paper or anything in there. Get a toothbrush and then clean it out really good, and then throw the toothbrush away, of course. The next thing I would do is make sure that lever is coming all the way back up. Sometimes the spring in that gets a little weak and it doesn't go all the way and doesn't fit flush into it. Thetford makes a product here that is called a toilet seal lubrication and conditioner. And this one you just simply sit in and let it sit for a period of time. I think they say start of the season, pour a quarter of the bottle into the toilet and let it stand. Do not flush for a minimum of 8 hours. And so, probably what is happening is you have a rubber gasket around that opening that ball is coming up to, and that either has gotten dried out or maybe even cracked. I have heard of some people just taking a little bit of white lithium grease and putting around on that, and it does hold for a while, but if it is damaged, you might have to replace the seal. But I would try this stuff first. It's pretty good stuff. Brian says, I thought I could include a video or pics, but it doesn't appear to have that option. And I don't think on this one, because I'm seeing the questions on the website that pulls it up, and I have not seen videos on that. But anyway, you should be able to see, that gasket in there and clean that out. James, I have an Isata 3, and I had to purchase new tires. The new tires show 90 PSI and the plate on the door says 67 PSI. I've heard always go by the plate on the door, but there is quite a difference between 67 and 90. I would appreciate your thoughts. And you're right, there is quite a bit of difference in it. And the only way to really tell what correct pressure is to weigh your coach. That 90 PSI on the sidewall of your tire is maximum pressure at maximum load. So if you don't have that thing loaded up to the complete top of the GVWR, the maximum weight you can put in that thing, that 90 PSI is going to be too high. The 67, in my opinion, I think might be too low, because that may be what the manufacturer has recommended with that unit with nothing in it. So the way you need to do it, the best way is to weigh by individual wheel position. And that's because you are going to find that some RVs are going to be a lot heavier on one side with the big slide room and the residential refrigerator and couch and all that other stuff versus the other side. You can do that at the RV Safety and Education Foundation. It's rvsafety.com. They have weighing teams that go all over the country. It's still a little bit difficult to get to them. So in the meantime, I would recommend going to a CAT scale, and they're at Flying J's Pilots. If you go to catscale.com, you'll see that they're in your area, and like for $10, you put the front wheels on the first pad, the back wheels on the second pad, and then if you're towing something on the third pad. But that'll give you the overall and the axle weight rating. So then you can do the math. So if you've got duals on the back, you'll divide it by 4, whatever that platform is. Go to rvsafety.com, find out the type of tires that you have, the model, the brand, and if they're a dual or single application, and you'll be able to find out what is the proper pressure for your rig as it's loaded with you going down the road. Now keep in mind, anybody that's going to be traveling with you needs to be in there when you weigh it, because I'm pretty sure that ISATA is a motorhome, so you would be in the unit while you're driving down the road. And if you have any more questions on that, you can email us, or you can rvsafety.com. Trey Seelman is running that now, and does an outstanding job with tires. They have researched it for many, many years. Then we were 15 minutes out from going live. We got that. Okay. So the next question, coming in, we've got Jeff on the F53 chassis. Does the cheap handling fix really work that well? And is it unsafe? And I'm not sure what cheap handling fix you're talking about, but there are sumo springs. There are a wide variety of things. Now, the F53 chassis, in my opinion, is far superior than what we had in the past. I started in 1983, and I remember the old Chevy gas chassis that were like elephant on roller skates. They had independent front suspension, which had coil springs, and they were all over the road. Very lightweight GVWRs, and manufacturers were building those things right up to the top. Then the Ford chassis came in 1989, and it had the first fuel-injected engine. It had overdrive transmission, and it had something we had never had before, tilt steering. I can't believe that, the old Chevy chassis. And it was a step in the right direction, in my opinion, because they had leaf springs instead of the airbag and coils. The airbags were never inflated. Workhorse then bought out the Chevy chassis, and they went to leaf springs, wider footprint, wider tires, and then they went out of business in 2010. So Ford is pretty much the only one that's there. And I guess I don't know what year you have. You just say the F53 on that. But I had the opportunity this last week to take a test drive at the Hershey show. And it was on an Allegro and a Southwind with the Ford chassis, the F53. And the newer one is again, I think it's a lot better, not knowing which one yours is. But, the Sumo Springs, I've heard people have put those on. It's just throwing money away. It's not really good. But it all depends on how much you want to spend. The first thing I would look at is to make sure that your shocks on those things are in good condition, and maybe even get rid of those and go with the Bilsteins that a lot of times were an option on some of the rigs. And then look at Liquid Spring. That's the company that I took the test drive on, and I took the Allegro, was the one on with just the rear system in it, and the Southwind had all 4 points. So they've come out now with rears and fronts. So they take the leaf spring out and put in this whole chassis system that bolts to the chassis itself, and it was night and day. I mean, it was a unbelievable ride, but it is a price point. So you have to decide, where you're going to be at, and I think on that unit, we're probably looking at about $10,000 to put that rear system in. But, it's something that you get off in the back end of it. It all depends on how your ride is. So, again, check your suspension the way it sits now, make it sure to spec. And I would say take a look at the Liquid Spring product. I was very impressed. Okay, and then, there we go. So Alan said, someone suggested I use automatic dishwasher soap in the gray and the black tanks to clean. Is this good or bad advice? I would not use dishwasher. You know, the reason you put chemical in, two reasons, odors, but the second reason is you want it to start to digest the sewage that you have in there. Now in the gray water tank, you know, the thing that I would recommend is just a gray water conditioner. Thetford makes gray water odor control, and I've always been really happy with that. And you know, it's very inexpensive. You don't have to use very much of that. In the black water tank, though, you definitely want to use either this or this or this. There's quite a few different products that are out in the market. This happens to be fragrance and dye and formaldehyde free. This one is as well. There are some with a fragrance in them. You know, the only thing with the fragrance, it's not bad. It's just some people that don't like the fragrance smell. It affects them. They have asthma, different things. So these are good products. So the nice thing about these is they start to digest the sewage in there, just like your municipal treatment plant does. And so you have less buildup in there. You have less probes that have issues with it. So I would definitely not use the dishwasher soap or any other kind of soap in there, because it doesn't start to process the way you want it, and you will have problems. Skip says, I tend to be hyper focused on holding tanks. They should have joined us half an hour ago. We spent a whole half an hour on holding tanks. I have a 2022 Reveal, so no blank tank. The canister instead, which is a dream. So no black tank. But my question is related to gray tank. So what he's got is he's got a toilet that just basically goes down to a small canister that he bought, and he dumps that himself. Alan just asked one question, dishwashing liquid, but I also have Thetford holding tank solution. Again, you're going to drain that tank, and you don't want hot water coming out of there. So make sure it's off, and then you with that kit you can put antifreeze into the inside of it. Tim H says, Skip, because tank sensors are so unreliable, I recommend only using liquid body wash for the shower. Bar soaps causes soap scum buildup that is impossible to really clean unless you drop the tank. And that's true. One of the things that I see to help clean that stuff up, there's a couple different products, and one of them that really works well is called Tank Blaster. And this is just a product that it just blasts crud from tank walls and cleans sensors. And it's designed mostly for black water tanks, but you're right, you're still going to get some buildup, some shampoos, soaps, that type of stuff that are going to create a slime or a scum, if you want to call it. But put one of these in, fill the tank up, let it sit overnight, maybe even drive it around a little bit. I've been real successful with these. The other thing I've seen people do is they take and put a black water flush valve in their gray water tanks. You see them in the black water all the time, and not all the time, but more and more often we see those are being installed. And now we're seeing more people are putting them in the gray if you have a problem with them. And I've got a sample of one here. I'm going to pull this out. And so we did this on this last gold, and this just happens, you know, I simulated a tank. Here's our sensors off to the side, and this is just drilled a 1 3/4 inch hole in the side, and that was the recommendation it had with the template in it. You might be able to go a little smaller, but on this one you notice it's got these legs here that stick out and pretty much splash the water all over the place. And very easy to install. I just simply put it in with a bunch of silicone around the side of it here. This is a black backflow prevention valve in here, but I drilled a hole through, stuck it in, drilled holes for the screws, put a whole bunch of silicone around the hole, and then popped this in and put these screws in it. And I think if we don't spray too much water around, we can actually show. I feel like Mr. Peabody's Closet here, if anybody remembers that old cartoon. And I need my top. Where did I put the top to this thing? There it is. Otherwise, I will get a shower. And we're going to have a little bit of leaking because I got holes in the side of this, and I did not have washers for the probes. But anyway, I just want to show you how this works. And I like the quick connect with this because these valves in here are, when you get a little bit of salt spray on the east and west coast, leave them sit out in the wintertime in the Midwest, they are almost impossible to get to hook them up, and they're always at an angle. So I'm going to move my computer here because I'm notorious for ruining computers and cell phones. I have my cell phone upstairs. That's good. I usually like to put it in my pocket when I go swimming, so that's a good one. So we are going to pop this on, and you can see how it just spins like crazy in there. So the closer you can put it to where it's going to hit those valves or those probes, the better off you'll be. You see I got a little backflow coming out of these. Angie says, "Are you going to use that towel?" No. Yes, I am. She's laughing. So anyway, that very easy to put in, very inexpensive. I think it was like $9.95. I got it. In fact, I got that one at, I believe it was Walmart, either Walmart or Fleet Farm. You've seen a lot more of the convenience store or the economy stores are carrying RV stuff because they know people will come in there. But if you can get that into close to that gray water tank area, those probes, that's a wonderful thing to put in and real easy to clean out. So, and I still have my computer working. Great. Okay, so Jeff says, Jeff had the F-53 chassis. So you said it was 2019 chassis. So it's still pretty good chassis. I would definitely check the shocks on that thing before I jumped in and put a lot of money into the suspension system first. And everybody's different. Some people want no body roll whatsoever. No highway hop coming in. And there are some pretty nasty highways around the country, and you got wind. So if you got a big unit, you're driving a billboard down the road, and that's kind of hard to fight the wind. And one of the things we kind of looked at is that if you're going to be driving a lot and you're going to be going across country and taking the big glory trip up to Alaska or wherever, the liquid springs are probably going to be worth it. One of the things my folks did, they went to Alaska, and that workhorse chassis drove pretty good. The power was good. But after driving 3-4 hours straight, they were exhausted. And, so I think at that time they would have loved to have something like this. So that's something I would recommend looking into at least. Any special techniques to driving at altitude above 8,000 feet? Recently staying at 8,000 to 9,000 feet, and my 3-liter turbo diesel was very sluggish. Actually didn't move with the first accelerator push. While I know elevation does have impact, I was surprised how much for my 20-foot rig. Any advice is greatly appreciated. So if you got a 20-foot rig and it is turbo diesel 3-liter, I would imagine you've probably got a Ford Transit or a Mercedes, either a B van or a C van type, probably more of a B van. And I personally have driven the Mercedes in and out of Colorado, down through California and some places. I've talked to a lot of people that have driven them, and I haven't seen much issue with the altitude as much as the grade of fuel that they're getting. You know, so a lot of times when you get into 8,000, 9,000 feet, the temperature drops dramatically, and it's not that you have to have a winter blend in there, but if you get into temperatures that do dip below freezing, you could get some sluggishness in there. It could also be due to filters. There's a lot of stuff in those, especially the Mercedes. You know, one of the things that I found with that is there was a lot more maintenance items that seem to affect fuel economy and so forth. And you know, we put it to the test. I ran a company called Easy Wash. We put in pressure washers, and I had 3 guys traveling around the country, and 2 of them were in trucks and trailers. So we got a lot of feedback on the F350 diesels pulling 8,000-pound trailers. We switched to the Chevy 2500 and 3500s with the Duramax. We even had a chance to drive a Ford F250 on the gas with the Triton V10 and got about 6 miles a gallon. That wasn't a very good test. But we put 125,000 miles on the Mercedes. We switched to a Ford Transit. We put another 150. The guy's still driving that one on that. And like I say, I have not seen much affected by altitude because you know it's a closed system. Now you're going to get with fuels, with propane. You will see issues with a refrigerator, with a furnace, and some of that stuff. And most of that is because the air is so thin that it has a tough time lighting. It doesn't have the right mixture in it. Sometimes you even have to go out and give it a little boost with one of those little grill lighters. And once you get it running, it works. But again, that's in the appliance side of it. I haven't seen a lot of that. So I would suspect that you probably need to take a look at all your filters, the fuel that you're getting, and you know, the grade of fuel that you're getting as well. If anybody else out there has seen that with that type of vehicle, please you know, get on our Facebook page or you know, get here and let me know, because I haven't seen that. So Tim says, Alan, I do use a regular liquid dish soap by giving a couple of healthy squirts after draining and adding a gallon or 2 just to cover the bottom so nothing sticks as the toilet is used. It also keeps the valves and gaskets wet, which is a good thing. And you know, that there's nothing wrong with dish soap. I like the Dawn blue dish soap because it's environmentally friendly. It doesn't have any petroleums in it. It has nothing. You know, the big thing is that you don't want to put anything in here that's going to compromise this seal down in the valve that's in there. It's not going to hurt the plastic at all, but you know, you do have a rubber seal that is on the back side of this that you can see here.
But you'll just need to go over the question.
Okay, so we got new batteries. My pacemaker is working. Oh wait, I haven't got that put in yet. So liquid soap was kind of, we were talking about that. Again, just to cover that, I do think that the Thetford product is a great product. We talked about Dawn Dish soap is very environmental friendly. I recommend using it on a lot of stuff. I don't think it'll deteriorate the seals. You know, the only thing that you might get a little bit out of it is this seal does have a little already grease kind of as part of it, and you do not want to use any WD-40 on this stuff because it will get rid of the grease that is inherent to this valve system in here. But I don't think the soap is going to make that much different as long as you occasionally use the valve seal. Storage, gray water, toilet, valve. Tissue, drain valve lubricant. That is one thing that you know, I don't think enough people realize that there is that rubber gasket down there, and there is a product that will help keep that nice and pliable. You know, so all right. Having buffering issues too. How to retract the hydraulic leveling jacks if the line blows when extended. So Thomas has a slide out that has hydraulic. We'll have 2 rams, I believe, that are underneath it and uses the same hydraulic system that typically is hooked to the jack. So it's either HWH or Lippert, whether it's Power Gear, Lippert Power Gear, so whoever it is. And so there's 2 different methods. Let's take, first of all, if you have HWH, then what you need to do with that is there is a valve over by the motor that you would turn these 2 valves, and that will allow the fluid to push back. And then inside they have somewhere they've put a hook that you can hook to the side of the inside of the RV and then hook to the slide room itself down on the floor somewhere, and literally crank that back in, and it will push the fluid back through your system and bring the unit in. It's a long, slow process. It's not something you're going to do very fast, but it's not that tough to do either. It's not like you're really pushing it. It just goes slow. Lippert, if you've got that system, then they have on the motor itself, usually in the compartment close to where the reservoir tank and everything else is at, on the top of the motor is a hex socket or a hole in it, and then there you just flip a switch in there again to be able to move the liquid back through. Get a hex head to put into a drill bit, or a cordless drill, and then just on the slow speed, you've got one way makes it go out, one way makes it go in. There's another switch that you can flip to do the hydraulic jacks as well. So, and I'm not sure about the Power Gear system. I know there is an override to be able to bring it back in. That one you'll have to check with the owner's manual. You should have a procedure to do that. Very similar, I believe, to the HWH system. In fact, I know we actually pushed one back in that the control module got wet in a unit with a full body slide it was a south wind, and the unit went out and didn't stop going out. And it actually tore the sidewall out about 3-4 inches and came out with the trim and everything. The guy was lucky enough to disconnect the battery, and we were able to unhook the motors, and then we pushed the whole thing back in, 4 of us. So that one wasn't real easy. Okay, Joe says, and this was at 5:21, so hopefully we got this fixed. He said, no sound right now, but allow me to ask a question about towing an RV trailer. I just bought a used 2012 Rockwood Signature Ultralight through an auction sale. I'm going to drive about 370 miles to pick this trailer up. I have a 2015 Dodge 1500 EcoBoost. It's my first time towing a trailer. I wonder if you could give me some suggestions and ideas towing a trailer like this over such a distance. Well, the first thing I would recommend, Joe, before you take your Dodge 2015 out and picked up this Rockwood, You didn't say how long the trailer was or how much it weighs. I would call out and find out. Okay, Joe said sound is okay now. Oh, and here are the specs. Okay, let me see if I can pull this up in 2015 Rockwood. It is weight-wise, dry, you're 6951. So GVWR, and dry means no water, no food, propane, no stuff inside. So you're going to be at probably about 8,000. It says GVWR is 8,450 pounds, but 760 of that is on there. And one of the things I always tell everybody is give yourself 10%. Don't be at maximum weight on that unit. When you're trying to stop in hot weather, the mountains, you're trying to get up a hill, give yourself about 10%, and that's going to take off of your 8,500, 850 pounds. So you're down in about 7,500. So you need to make sure your Dodge can pull 7,500 pounds. And how did I get back out of this? Oh, there we go. Okay. Popped up. So you need to make sure that unit, that's a pretty heavy unit. And even though your EcoBoost says it can do 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, 11,000 pounds, I would be careful where it's at. I also would probably put on either a Blue Ox or a Campco weight distribution and equalizing hitch. You're going to be pulling a billboard down the road. You'll have a lot of wind, and that'll help keep some of that sway out. The other thing I would do is go weigh it. Go to a cat scale. Once you hook it up and you're going to drive that far back with it, go to a cat scale, put your front wheels on the first one, your back wheels on the second one, and your trailer on the third one, because what you want to find out what you have on that back axle. Now you're not going to be overloaded on the trailer itself, but there's two things that can happen. If you're too heavy on the front hitch, then you're gonna have the V, and you're going to do the highway hop going down the road. If you have not enough weight on the hitch, you want about 10%. So if you have not enough weight on the hitch, and then what you're going to do is you'll weigh the coach with the unit, drive around, unhook, come back, weigh just the truck, and front wheels on the first pad, back wheels on the second pad, and that'll tell you, here's the weight of the truck, here's what it was with the trailer on it, so here's what tongue weight I have. If you don't have about 10% up in the front of that, you're going to start to get some sway as you get up to about 55, 60 miles an hour with that thing. Don't put water in it. Water weighs 8.6 pounds per gallon unless you don't have enough weight on that front hitch. Then if your water tank is up at the front, you can put some water up there and maybe try to equalize that. So getting a good equalization in there, but I would definitely invest in a equalizing and a weight distribution hitch when you're starting getting into about 8,000 pounds with that, especially on a 1500. What you're going to find is the suspension on a 1500, you're at a half-ton pickup, is not the best. You start getting up in maybe even a Z71. I noticed a huge difference in my 1500 Chevrolet Silverado. I had a Z71 package, and then when I bought my new truck, the 2016, it did not have a Z package. I thought, I don't need it. It was hard to find a truck at that point because it was in kind of between model years, and it's hard to find one now. But there was a huge difference in just the sway of that truck alone. And then I put a camper on it. I was like, ooh, so get yourself a hitch. And that was a spec. I saw that. Skip said Mercedes. Okay. Thank you very much. Any engine at higher altitude has to work harder due to less oxygen. This is Tim. I'd check all the filters, fuel filter. If that's not it, I'd have the fuel pump tested for proper output pressure. Yeah, you're right. They have to work harder. But again, the altitude really has nothing to do with the air, and it's more, I should say it has nothing to do. It has less to do with the thinner air. Because of the closed system, it still does draw air in it. But I do think you're right that all the filters. Ken says, in my Coachman Freelander, I'm getting intermittent flickering of the LED lights inside. This happens even when plugged into shore power. Any ideas how to fix that? That is a gremlin that we call it. Just hold on a second. Okay, we had one more audio issue, but it was from 5:29, so that everything should be okay. Okay, just wanted to make sure. So flickering in the LED lights, and so I guess I've got a couple questions with that, Ken. First of all, they draw so small amperage that they usually aren't affected by anything else running inside. Do you notice, are all of them doing it? Turn all the lights on and try and simulate what's happening when those lights are flickering. I know intermittent, that's the hard part about it. It could be the sockets. Were they LED lights that were standard on your Freelander, or were they bulbs that you put in after the fact? A lot of times what happens that I've seen is that if you swap out the old incandescent bulbs for LED bulbs, sometimes the housing of it is a little bit, just slightly bit smaller, and it could jiggle inside. Remember, you can have some vibration in there, even just walking around. All the lights on, do you see a pattern? Is it just in here? Is it just there? You could isolate some of that stuff back to a fuse that may be loose in the distribution panel, wiring. And again, I have seen that in old fluorescent lights, that you turn the TV on and the fluorescent lights flicker because you're losing a little bit of voltage out of the TV, the older tubes and the fluorescent stuff. But I have not seen that in the LEDs. But what's the temperature? What starts up? Does anything, is maybe the refrigerator kicking on? I guess the first thing I would probably try is to turn everything off. Just make sure that all your appliances are off, that your TV and everything. So just turn the lights on, and remember, you've got and I would do this also unplugged. Charge the batteries up, unplug, so that you have nothing coming through the distribution center. You don't have the converter kicking on trying to charge the batteries. Is it a drop in your batteries that's causing this because they're sulfated? There's so many things. So if you can isolate it and it doesn't happen when you're unhooked and nothing is on, then you can maybe start taking some steps and say, okay, then what if I turn the refrigerator on? Do they flicker? Does this, so finding where that's at. In the old days, we used to put and I don't remember if it was called a resistor or a transistor, or it was some kind of a filter on the main line that came through, because you would get some of that interference going to those fluorescent lights. But again, I've never seen that on the LEDs. But one thing I've learned is never say never. But I haven't seen it. So good luck trying to trace that down. Okay, Skip says, thanks, Tim. Brand new rig, have put 13,000 miles on it in 3 months. Wow, you're driving. So would not expect such issues this early in its life. Under warranty, so we'll address the first major service. Yeah, definitely get it in. If it's under warranty, get it in and get it documented, at least, that you're having this stuff with it. And make sure that they take a look at it. Tim says, unfortunately, getting warranty service or any service in the RV industry is unlikely in any timely manner. If you do have issues, it might be better to find an independent mobile RV tech. And that is a situation right now that the RV industry has exploded. There are 520,000 RVs were sold last year, new. That doesn't count all the RVs that are being sold used. That doesn't count all the RVs that are being now rented by the RV Share and RV Easy and some of those that are out there too. And so you have more and more RVs coming into the market and being used and trying to be serviced. And the challenge that RV manufacturers have right now is that they, in 2008 through 2011, with all the economy stuff that happened, the RV industry pretty much shut down. So all these RV technicians were laid off. They went to work on the wind farms and diesel and other places that had less curves, dips in the economy than the RV industry did. And so now all of a sudden we got all these people coming back in, and all these dealers are saying, I don't have anybody to service them. So RVIA has stepped up, and they're putting training programs together. They're working with junior colleges and all kinds of avenues to try to bring more technicians, certified technicians, into the industry. But Skip, I would say, find a dealer that is authorized on that Mercedes, at least get it documented. And I think you have a better chance with a Mercedes than you do with some of the RV stuff, because a lot of the car manufacturers and the Mercedes especially, FedEx uses them, a variety of different delivery services. So I don't think they were hit quite as bad with that. In fact, I know with the Mercedes we had a NOx sensor issue that we battled all over the country, and we were able to get into Mercedes dealers pretty easily all around the country. Not so much with some of the RV dealers, I would say. So anyway, hope you're able to get that taken care of. Thanks. So check the dry weight of the trailer, the maximum towing of the Dodge. Ronnie asked, what is the best roof patch material? And I would say, in my opinion, Eternabond is probably the best stuff that is out there. It's been in the market for many, many years, and I've used it on several trailers, motorhomes. It sticks like crazy. In fact, if you get it on, you have a hard time getting it off. So my best thing is Eternabond, but clean that roof really, really good wherever you're going to patch it at. They do have some recommendations for it. I've used mineral spirits, and they say not to use that, but I've used it and never had a problem. It can deteriorate the roof material underneath, but it's been pretty foolproof for me. But look on the label. I had some people that have even used now I just lost the name of it, Flex Seal, with that. So the Flex Seal version stuff, in a pinch, if you can't get the other stuff, I've used that on some occasion. It's worked pretty well too. And Tim H is answering most of our questions for us here. Tim says that depends on the type of roof, plastic, TPO, or rubber, EPDM. So the Eternabond works on just about any type of the rubber membrane. Dicor also has its self-leveling lap seal, which he says in there, but it all depends on the what am I looking at? How big the repair is that you need. Tim also says you can use Eternabond tape, but be aware it's a PETA to remove. Okay, I get that. If you ever have to remove or hatch, you're exactly right. Joe says dry weight of the trailer is 6,950 pounds. Max towing of the Dodge Eco is 8,500. So, yeah, you are, and I think what you're going to find, Joe, when you hook that up, my Silverado says it will tow 11,000 pounds, and I have put a 6,000, just under 7,000 pound trailer on the back of it, and I tell you what, it was a very challenging drive. It was hard going up hills. I got very poor fuel economy out of it. But a part of that is that my Silverado 2016 has the 8-speed transmission, and it just cannot seem to find a gear. I don't like it. I loved my 2002, and I drove it till it dropped dead on me. It was a great, great friend. And I was not happy with this new one. There's a lot of things I like about it, but I still don't like the 8-speed transmission. So I think part of that's going to depend on type of transmission Dodge has. But just take your time. Like I said, I think a weight distribution hitch is the best. And Tim says if you bought LEDs from China, I'd toss them. I guess, and that is very true. One of the things and that brings up a good point. We did a lot of videos on LED lights. I don't have a sample of one here, but I used M4 LED, and I did a lot of research with this guy. He was out at California at the show one year, and he's an RVer, and he tried a lot of the China stuff, a lot of things you can buy at auto stores and so forth, and they use fiberboard instead of metal cage to hold the LED squares, the lenses that are in them. Some of them are polarity sensitive, and they're cheap. And so you definitely want to get one that has the metal cage that holds it in place. And you can tell you get what you pay for. You got the welds are cheaper. There's a lot of things that can go bad, but again, I think if you do those steps, okay, only a couple flicker. Standard with the unit. So then Ken says only a couple of them flicker. So what I would suggest then is to take those bulbs that are flickering out and swap them into something else. If they still flicker in a different configuration, then you know it's the bulb. If the new bulbs flicker in your housing with the lens that was originally doing it, then it's actually the lens itself or the connection in there. Joe said, yeah, I bought a Kurt 1750 track weight distribution hitch with sway controls. The first time using this, and that's great. You'll save a lot of headaches with that. Daryl, I have seen bad 110 volt bulbs that flicker until warmed up. Could be the bulb. And again, that's easy way to tell is just go back and just something caught my eye here, and just go back and swap those out, and you should be able to tell. LEDs are typically not going to stop flickering when warmed up. Joe says, I am thinking to buy and he's got a link here to Amazon. I wonder if this device can work alone by itself, or do I have to buy something else to use it together? Let's see what he's got here, if I can find it. Better Way, Kurtz 15, whoops. Better Way mobile towing scale with tow sense technology, Apple Android smartphones. And I have, to be honest with you, I have not used this. I have heard about it. Still waiting to get some information back from Trey Seelman at the RV Safety Education Foundation. And he is the one that's got teams all over. And I'll have to do some research on this because, like I say, I'm not familiar with it. That there's another I'll use together here. Let's see what the second one is. Yeah, it's the same. Okay. So if anybody's had any issues with that or have tried that out, let us know. And I will check that out to see if we can do it. Sean asks, how do you know when a SureFlow water pump needs replacing? My water pump made a loud sound and it seems, but I am new to RV life. A loud sound, it seems, but I'm new to the RV life. Well, I get, the big thing with SureFlow, and let me grab, got time here. There's not a lot to these. If you have access to take it out and bench test it, you have an inlet and an out. So you got water coming in through here. There's going to be a screen typically on this side that will filter because you're going to get hard water. So you have sediment, you'll have sand even in some cases, and then coming out on this back side. So you pretty much 12 volt and positive and negative. Should be able to hook up a water source to this and run it off to the side of it and bench test it. Maybe even before doing that, I guess if it made a loud sound, there several things could be happening. It could be that you had one of the incoming line or the outgoing line typically. If the water pump started up, sometimes they can slap, I typically recommend, rather than hard piping some of this stuff off of there, that you get a very flexible hose. This actually happens to be a SureFlow silencer kit that they recommend putting this on, so you don't have a hard thing that's going to, you get a flexible line when it starts up, because you'll get some movement, you'll get some prump out of it a little bit. So I would take a look at that first. If it's pushing water, you're getting water through the faucet, that's the main thing. You should be able to get, I think, you got 3 gallons per minute coming out of this, and pressure is about 55 psi. So you can even put a pressure gauge on something and just see what kind of pressure you're getting coming out of that. But if it made a loud sound, I don't necessarily. There's all kinds of sounds in RVs. I mean, you're going to have that kind of stuff. Just try to isolate where it came from. But take a look at that pump. Just try it, run it. If I'm getting water through everything, if it's not cycling, that's the other thing, that all of a sudden it goes prrrump, prrrump, or starts up for no reason. I don't have anything on. That typically tells me I either have a leak somewhere in the system, in one of the connections or wherever, or it's backflowing through here. I got a diaphragm in here that's not seating, and it's allowing the pressure to backflow a little bit, and then it's going to back into the holding freshwater tank, and then it's going to sense, oh, I have a drop in pressure, and it'll start up again. So either got a leak if that's the case. But if you have nothing else going on, I just kind of wait, see what happens with that sound again. You just plug your LBD reader down. Tim says, I think RV Repair Club should do a review on that Kurt thing, and I agree with you. We'll try to get. I want to get some more feedback from some of the weighing teams out there. Of course, they're always going to say go weigh the coach, but you're not going to weigh the coach every week. Joe says, thanks for sharing your experience. You're welcome, Joe. And thanks Tim also as well. You may want to pump it. And he said the same thing. Make sure. And one of the other things that we have done is they've got rubber mounts here. But I say we, when I was at Winnebago 20 years ago, we also put this on a carpeted board with another little rubber grommets in it to make sure that you didn't get the thumping sound out of it. But there's a lot of other things that can cause sounds inside of an RV. So good points. Let's see. I think that's it for the. Anybody else have any questions? How are we doing for time? Got a couple minutes. So one of the things I just wanted to bring up something I saw this morning. We just got another question. Guess I don't. No. Chuck says, turning around to back my 31-foot carry light, I inadvertently caught the emergency brake line and unplugged it. I back about 60 feet across gravel. Should I replace the brakes, or is that not a concern? Well, if you just broke the cable, then should I replace the brakes, or is that not a concern? Yeah, not seeing what you've done to it, I'm just assuming if you broke the cable, then you should be able to just replace that cable, because what it's doing is it's going to a battery system and an emergency. You said it was the emergency brake line, so it's just a cable, and you should be able to you don't want to splice that cable by any means, but you should be able to get back into the box that it goes into and install a new cable. I mean, it's going to take a special crimper and do the other stuff, so you need to do that. What other one came up? But I don't think you need to replace the brakes in that, because you still should have some braking through your brake assist in your travel trailer, and not have to do that. And the last one, I think we have time for one more question. Carl asks, need proper info on removing original graphics with a heat gun on a 93 FW International. So something keeps catching my eye when it comes up. I have found it very difficult to remove graphics with the heat gun. They just, by the time you need to remove the graphics, they've dried up, they've cracked, they've curled, they have pretty much solidified on that unit. I would be careful with what you're scraping, because you can gouge the fiberglass, which I'm assuming you have on the sidewall. Most of the repair facilities that do something like that, and a lot of times it's in the front cap, because that fades pretty bad, and you got the great big Eagle or something, Montana or whatever. They use a hard rubber grinding disc that's made by 3M. When I say grinding, it's just it's really it's a hard rubber disc on there that'll peel that stuff off and doesn't do too much damage to the fiberglass in there. But usually the heat gun is, most people aren't very successful with it. I wouldn't try any chemicals or anything like that. It's just it's a lot of work, is what it is. All right, so with that, Chuck said, we're just going to hit his real quick. He said, should I worry about the brakes if the cable came unplugged? And you should be able to take that housing off and be able to look at that. And then that's just Tim put in here, just take a look at the brakes, make sure that they still work. So with that, we got to wrap it up, everybody. One last thing I want to say. This morning I saw an article. If you happen to be able to go to emergencyrv.com, it's a gentleman in Denver, Colorado, that has been getting donated RVs to take to firefighters and other people out in California that have lost their homes in the fires, that are also police officers and stuff like that. Very interesting read. If you get a chance to take a look at that, it's something that we're going to get involved in and see if we can't help with some support for these people that are going to start living in RVs for the first time. And we all know what that's like. So with that, have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you next month, and follow up with some questions. We'll try to get that Kurt and some of those other things. So with that, I'm Dave Solberg. Take care and happy RVing.